So Walter, what kind of a pine do you have here?
This is a Scots pine, which comes from Sweden, where they are the most existent tree there, and they live everywhere, especially also in the bogs. A bit surprising because we are told that these pine trees want very dry feet, but they live in the bogs, which is moist sort of ground. But on the top of the bog, there is an area that which is only 2 or 3 inches high, which is dry. It's sort of an island swimming on the bog, and they live on these islands. This is why they have very flat root pads, and they're very good for collecting, because you just cut them out with a saw and pull them, and the survival rate is very high, like over 90%. But you have to find this first. And most of them are straight and uninteresting, but some are crooked like that, very much. So this has endless kinks and cuts and whatever. I believe this was made by moose, although the Swedish say that's not possible, but they don't have a better theory. Anyway, let's assume that this moose did that. But of course they are not trying to make good bonsai, they are trying to cross a road. And there's a fence, and they walk up and down the fence, and they kill the vegetation, and that's the result. Thank you for doing that. Anyway, I have quite a few of those. I really like them. One reason is because they're available for me as a sort of leftovers of a big batch, because most people would take things that already looks close to a bonsai, and they love thick trunks, and they like to make modern bonsai, and these sort of literati, this is not something that appeals to many people right there, and so these are cheaper. And the question is, what to do with them? Well, you make a literati. What exactly is a literati or bunjin? Well, literati and bunjin is the same. Literati is Latin and means the people who know how to read and write. Oh, really? He knows how to read and write? No. But the literati were the people who, the ruling class, the big officers and the powers to be in Chinese and government or Japanese government, just the same. And they actually, well, this is sort of a Chinese invention, and they retired at 60 or something, and they usually moved to the mountains, away from the cities, away from all this civilization, and to live together in a secluded way up in the rocks. And there they saw these trees which naturally grow like there on very poor soil. By the way, the literati trees grow on stone, but it's still the same species. They can also grow on stone or in water, which is kind of very interesting. Anyway, and they saw these trees, and then they do bonsai as a hobby. And they learned in the big cities to do this commercial bonsai. At that time, that was about 200-300 years ago, flowering trees or trees that looked very like animals, and thick trees, and very interesting sort of crooked, unnatural sort of weird shapes. And this is what people liked, and this is what people paid money for. And the literati saw that real trees don't look like that. And then they wanted to do something that looked like the real trees that they were right in front of them. And they absolutely didn't look like the trees of the cities that the vulgar people sort of liked. So they frowned at commercial bonsai. Does that sound familiar to you? Well, it does. So they discovered that a bonsai can look like a real tree. How about that? You must be a genius to come up with that. So, and they decided that this is what they like. Especially since they found this tree right next to, which were very slim and didn't have branches in the right spot. So they discovered that if you have on the very top a little crown, then then that looks okay. That looks good. So anyway, they now literati are known, but especially beginners cannot really understand them and very often don't like them. And I know very well from a commercial point of view, you cannot sell these, almost not. So while these are much better than most other trees, they don't fetch much money. So for commercially, no way. But artistically, oh, this is wonderful. You can really play with these. And maybe you have read that there are descriptions of the rules for literati style, and it goes along the lines that the normal bonsai rules don't apply to these trees. Branches can cross, and branches can be in weird spots, and it's very important to have a very much moving trunk and a little crown, and this should look natural. And I said, oh, that sounds exactly like I want to do my trees. The only difference is that they saying this only applies to literati trees. And I said, well, I apply to all trees. How about that? So it's just the same. Yeah, you can do anything, but it must look good and natural. Okay, so what's the trick with literati? The trick is that you must be aware that it's not about a crown. While we spend most time wiring, styling the crown, thinking about the crown. The crown is not the thing. The real thing is the trunk, absolutely only the trunk. The trunk has very many movements, and you find where is the best position to look at it. And if you have this problem here that I'm having here, I cannot make a decision here. I like it from almost every angle, but there's two angles where I like it best. It's from here to here, only looking at the trunk. What is normally an important feature in bonsai is the nebari and the lower part of the trunk, and here that's not very good. But with the literati, you don't care, because real trees don't have fantastic nebaris. They look like that. Okay, so you'll leave it like that. And with a normal bonsai, that would be an enormous fault. With the literati, I think it's okay. So anyway, it's all about the trunk. And the top, you just style to fit to the trunk. A very small, not very fancy top. This is almost too dense. I will probably, after taking off the wire next year, I will gin several branches to take off 50% of the grain. So why would I do that? In order to make the optical weight of the trunk, of the top, smaller. What the hell does that mean? The optical weight is what you see when you look at that. You see a big green ball up there, okay? And then you see the trunk. And the trunk looks kind of slim because it carries this heavy weight. It's optical weight. It's only in your eyes. It's not real weight. And if I take out a lot of this green up there, then I take off the weight, and then suddenly the trunk looks strong again. Okay, and you look at what's important. You shouldn't look at the crown. You should look at the trunk. The crown is just there to make it a tree which is alive. It's that simple. So don't think too much about the crown, and you can do what I do here. People would say, oh, this is a very nice literati. I said, oh, well, this is just work in progress. It's not finished. Give me another 2 years. I'll take out 50% up there, only maybe leave 2 or 3 of these branches, and that's it. But this trunk will stay. That will stay as it is. So then you put it into some pot. This is a real, actually non-bund pot, which not made for bonsai. It's made for rice, a rice bowl. But basically, that's normally what it was, and a round pot. That's sort of the tradition, and they look pretty good in a round pot. I learned that they also look cool if you put them on a slab. Of course, Walter would put anything on a slab, or an artificial stone, and so I have a lot of these which I just admire. I leave him alone for a long time, and I make the crowns smaller and smaller and smaller. Of course, at one point you have to stop; it gets too small. But usually that's it. Usually it's overcrowded. Okay, so this is my literati.
Are you ever tempted to change the form of the trunk with a bend or a tweak at all?
On this one, I don't remember having done that. But of course you could do it. You see what's happening here? You could put some guy wire here and bring it down. I think that's a very bad idea because I don't want a part of the trunk to be horizontal. So this is the worst you can do. So you do the opposite. Okay, you can bring it up, you can straighten that. But how silly can you be to straighten that? I mean, I think, I think this is perfect. But if I wanted a kink here, I have done this before. I've really pulled them down, and the trick is now to pull them down to where you see this is the position I want, and then do more of that and leave it on for 2 or 3 years, and then when you let loose, it goes back and it's exactly where you wanted it anyway. So many of these trees look a bit contrived while they're well, I'm working on them, but look better after many years. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Okay, so this is how about, and then there's some big tricks which I have not done on this tree. But for example, if I wanted this to lean over like that dramatically, this is very straight. I want a kink here. You cannot bend this. There's no way you can bend it. Of course there's a way to bend it.
No.
Really? Well, you have to be a brave person and know what you're doing. I take a very sharp saw and I saw a piece out a piece of cake here and here, chum chum, okay? A piece of cake up to the 50%, up to the middle of that trunk, maybe slightly more. So a piece of cake, and I take that out, and then I have put some guy wire up here and down here, and then I pull him down, and then I bend him over like that. And then people say, you have to protect this. Oh, I protect this, but you would be surprised with what? I used to take Vaseline over there, but since I'm such a frugal person, Vaseline is too expensive for me. I take milking fat. What the heck is this? Milking fat was where the farmers put on their hands when they're milking cows. It's kind of cool. It's very cheap. It is definitely not poisonous, and it's fat, and it's natural. Okay, so I put milking fat all over it. And you know, the good thing is that this doesn't hurt at all. It doesn't look good, but nothing looks good when you really pull that down. Anyway, you leave it alone, and after 6 or 7 or 8, 12 months, this milking fat disappears. And in the meanwhile, this wound heals over. So if you really pull it down so that you close this cake thing, then the trunk is over here. Then you must make sure it never moves again. And I bet you in 1 year that will grow together. You think I'm kidding? I've done this many times. I can show you a few examples. But that, of course, is what you think for very brave people. But it's kind of simple, but you have to be brave. And you have to understand it, and the minute you understand it, it's okay. But you must make sure that this is not the only living part. It could well be that it's dead on the other side while there's still bark on. It's only living here. If I cut in here, then I have killed the whole living part. But so you must sort of think, well, probably this is alive everywhere. It looks very much. So if I cut in here, I'm not taking a big risk. If you do such things, of course, you're always taking some risk, but it is a calculated risk. So what I described, I think it's difficult to kill it like that. It would be like less than 5% of the trees would die, but the rest would be much better, especially if you have a very straight trunk, make a king. So you can make several of those, by the way. That used to be a secret 20 years ago, very hidden. Only Kimura knew that. He was there before, but he really worked on like this a lot. But it leaked through.
If you were judging an exhibit, this is a different kind of question. Do you think a literati bonsai could compete against larger, more powerful and dramatic trees?
Normally, no way, and that's totally unfair. So there should be an extra class, but how many extra classes do you want? You want for deciduous trees, for evergreens, for what? For large trees. They have a class for small, middle, and large, and very large trees. So everybody can win an award. Well, why don't you forget about the classes and throw awards to the public anyway? Why would you have awards? I think the literati is a good example why this does not make sense. I am sitting in front of this tree. It's not finished yet, but I really think it's very, very good. But I'm totally aware that most people would just walk by. And if I wanted to sell it, I would get something like, if I'm very lucky, 2,000, okay? But it's worth a lot more, basically, artistically, than most other trees, which fetch 10,000. So it's not about money at all. And it's also, even people who know a lot about bonsai would still not really appreciate it. They would say, yeah, it's nice, but that's about it. So I keep telling people that I want a tree that really impresses you, because it's all about impression. And this does not really impress us, but it's sort of a side thing. It's like an accent. It's like you have this big, powerful tree that win the awards, and then besides that you have this tree. There are some people who have many very monster trees, and they have one monster after the other, and that's too much. I think it's very nice if you have the big tree and the small, and then the literati in between, and then there's a deciduous tree or a broadleaf tree, and then and a conifer again. So this is in my garden. It's more a play. I don't think about other people. I do that for myself. And the literati have a huge advantage. They don't need much place. And even better, you can have two literati, and between them you can place a small tree because there's big empty space. Artistically, that's not a good idea, but space-wise, that's a very good idea, because this is more a storage area rather than an exhibit area. So you see, I go about this in a very playful manner, because I do, like a little boy, I'm playing with trees.
Do you recommend literati-style bonsai for beginners?
Well, if not really, but there's always a beginner. If I have 20 beginners, one of them is going to bring this long stick, which is, of course, a total misunderstanding. He thinks we can create a piece of art out of that, like a wonderful bonsai. And he says, this is what I want this to look like. So some people sell seeds on the net, like for $2. I saw one, and then they show one of my trees, a $20,000 tree, and then they have a seed for $2. That's a good deal, okay? Okay, I wish you good luck to make this. It's possible, but not very probable. So for a beginner, it's not a good idea. However, they bring this stick. And then I make it a point to never tell people, go and find another one, or here's your money. I don't want you to say, okay, what can we do with this? Also for the rest to learn, what can we do? Okay, I'll show you. Okay, this is how I put wire. I put rather thick wire around it, because I want to do something very dramatic, okay? And then I start make this much smaller. And then hopefully it has still small branches, and then I make this little crown, and it looks cool. Right away, right there. But of course the beginner could never make this himself. And this is why it's not for beginners. If in many beginners classes are like this, that they have to put on wire, and then they start trying to shape something, but they cannot do it. Then the master does it for them. Then they walk out and say, "Oh, I'm good. I can do bonsai. Here is a wonderful example." No, you have not done that bonsai. The master has done it. Well, I have done all the work. Yeah, but he did the bending, okay, or the setting. So that's not a good idea. I want the beginners to do it themselves, and with a literati, it's way over their head. But at least some may understand it, and some don't. It's easier for them to understand a regular tree.